Hello there, everyone. My name is Kenneth Martin from Block Architects. I'm joined today by my good friend Mike from the Self-Build Success, Path to Self-Build Success. Mike, how are you this morning?
I'm not too bad, Kenny. Suffering a wee bit from a cold, but apart from that, I'm absolutely fine. Thank you.
Oh, well, there's no room for colds in the self-build world, so you'll just so, Mike, you've kindly agreed to come on today to give us a wee bit of insight to your journey, your expertise as a self-build mentor. Can you tell us a wee bit about your journey so far and where it's led you to?
Well, I started off life in your domain. Actually, I was an architectural technician, architect's office, so went through ONC, HNC, then moved on, worked for a local authority as a building inspector, building control officer, and latterly as a divisional officer in charge of one of the 4 district offices. I then moved from there to a Canadian property investment company in the early days of the kind of oil business in Aberdeen. So that was fast moving and exciting. I then left there and had more in architectural practice, architectural technician process, which I worked on for 6 years. I was doing some work for a timber frame manufacturing company, Scott Frame Timber Engineering, and was asked to join them, which I subsequently did, and took on the role of sales director. So I was sales director of Scott Frame for 26 years and helped grow the business from, I think it was probably about 4 million when I joined, and we were up almost at 40 million, at its peak, dealing with the self-builders, the length and breadth of the UK and beyond. We actually were doing work in the Falkland Isles, the Channel Isles, France, Belgium. So, been dealing with this self-build for decades, probably in excess of 40 years, as the grey hairs in the head there would probably indicate. So, but no, really enjoy it. Myself, I've actually self-built twice myself, so and found it extremely rewarding. And I'm really passionate about self-build. Maybe sad to say, but that's the reality. I really get a buzz from, from self-build.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for that, Mike. So obviously we've known each other for a good few years, and I've been watching your posts, etc., with some interest, and we've maybe shared some conversations. I'm interested to know then, for the viewers, for the listeners, at what point is it based for them? You've got an online course which obviously deals with, self-build. When would be the correct time for someone to actually get enrolled in that course?
Yeah, you've got a valid point. I should have really mentioned probably in my kind of bio there, when I left Scott Frame, I thought I had all this kind of knowledge in my head, and I thought, well, yeah, it'd be good to impart some of that knowledge and give something back to the industry that had, served me very well for many decades. So I developed the Path to Self-Build Success course, which is a 12-module online course that people can subscribe to and do it as fast or as slow as they want, and they've got lifetime access to that. And I also, as part of that, to get an hour every week kind of coaching call. So what I always say to people is, well, look, it's worthwhile, investing in the, in the course, because it will give them a lot of knowledge that would be very useful to them when they are actually self-building. Even, I go into why you should engage with an architect, at what stage you should engage with an architect. And there's a lot of terms in that can be used to them as well, and it also helps them right at an early stage in terms of what they should be doing prior to them actually purchasing a site, because there's lots of things to take into account when you're purchasing a site that the unaware inexperienced self-builder would not have knowledge of. Many of the self-build sites that for sale are probably overpriced and are probably not worth what they're actually on the market for. So I think it's well worthwhile getting involved at as early a stage in the process as you possibly can. And what I say is, look, whatever you pay for the course, and it's not an expensive course by any manner of means, is if I can't save them the cost of the course many times over, then I would feel as if I've done them a disservice. And
Yeah, so I think that's that. I think that's one of the big things we've seen really through the whole COVID thing is this whole self learning. You know, learning about things online, doing courses. I mean, I've done a few things myself online as well. So, how are you finding within your marketplace? How has that been embraced?
Yeah, no, it's been pretty good. When I was developing the course, the idea was to have it on a face-to-face basis, but the reality is COVID hit, and I had to change it to an online course. And that actually, looking back on it, it probably was a good thing, because the course is probably better now than what it would have been. Sorry.
All right.
But it would have been, just on a face-to-face basis. So
Good, fantastic. So obviously you were a technician in your former years. I'm an architect, and people might think, well, for example, some of my clients might say, Keith, why would I need Mike, a mentor, as opposed to you, an architect, involved in myself build? So, what do you think is, why would I refer a client to you? What are you bringing to the table for a self build client?
okay, well, what I'd like to make clear is, right from the start, I mean, it's two complementary roles. I mean, I wouldn't be preparing drawings and that for you. That would be something that, like, so you would do. So I wouldn't be applying for planning permission and building control and all that good stuff. That's your area of expertise. What I would say, where the benefits of using me is, as I say, I'm there to kind of hold people's hand. Now, I can do the whole process. I could actually organise the builder, the self-builder, and project manage the whole job all the way through from start to finish, if that's the service that they actually want. But I can tailor my service to suit what the individual is looking for. So they might be happy enough to project manage it themselves, but just maybe don't have the confidence to do it completely alone. And that's where I can help them, and I can be there to support them along that journey. Or if they want me to project manage, I can actually do that via subcontractors or a main contractor, if they're in a situation where they don't have the time to do it themselves. So I can, my services can be tailored to suit what the self-builder is actually looking for, and really take a lot of the stress and worry out of the whole process.
Well, I think that's interesting to note then, because there is, in my mind, there's a clear distinction about how or what we do for our clients as compared to yourself, for example. So, we wouldn't get involved necessarily in holding the client's hand all the way through and dealing with builders, ordering materials, advising, that kind of thing. Architects are typically planning, building work drawings. We might be involved on site to offer clarifications, but that kind of day-to-day handling of the project is not something that my practice anyway would get involved in. So it's quite a clear distinction then on what you do for the client as opposed to us as the architect. So that's
it's exactly that. So that you as the architect are not getting a phone call at 8:30 at night saying, "Oh, Kenny, what's I've got this situation. What do I do here and what do I do there?" Yeah. Well, that's not really generally typical of what an architect's fee would actually include. So as I say, that's where my expertise comes into it, and I would be that person that could phone at any point and just get that clarification on something. And if it requires a site visit, then again, not a problem. Yeah. The one thing that would differentiate would be that self-builders require a warranty. Most people would refer to as an NHBC warranty, whereby they need the mortgage company that they're actually going to be taking their mortgage from would insist on having some form of warranty. Now, as you know, Kenny, that can take two forms. It can be getting an architect certificate, which is something you can provide through carrying out inspections during the process of the build, or you can actually get it done by through the builder. If it's a builder who is registered, then they can actually get the warranty through whatever warranty that they actually use. There, various companies provide warranties, but it is very, very important. And I've certainly been in the situation where self-builders have gone ahead, they've built the house, and then they're now looking to try and organise a mortgage, and the mortgage company saying, well, have you got a warranty provider? And warranty provider? What's a warranty provider? Now, to try and get one after the job has actually been built is going to be very difficult, if at all possible. But if it is possible, then you can be rest assured that the premium you will pay will be substantial, because obviously there's increased risk, and they might actually insist on fairly invasive work to be done in order to prove that what you've done has been done correctly. It could be excavations to show that foundations have been put in at the right depth and at the right width, opening up walls to see that insulation has been fitted that it was specified in architect's drawing, and so the list goes on. So, that's the type of advice that I would be giving very early in the process, so they wouldn't get caught out with any of that, type of situation.
Yeah, I think it's quite important to also discuss the differences between an architect certificate and a warranty as well, because an architect certificate basically means, yes, the architects went out there, and well, I've been on both camps. Yeah, so here's a wee story. So as an architect, I would go out and I would make sure I inspect the build 8 to 10 times. I'm definitely on site 8 to 10 times minimum to look at the build and satisfy myself I'm happy with it. And then we write a certificate at the end of it, and that lasts for 6 years. A lot of warranty companies that I've been involved in will come out maybe 2 or 3 times throughout the course of the build, and they'll give you a certificate that lasts 10 years. Yeah. So in my wee head, the 10-year certificate, whilst it's longer, gives you another 4 years, but it doesn't really know if their surveyor's been out 3 times, 4 times, they've not really seen enough of the build to satisfy themselves realistically that the build's done the way it should be. So that's just a wee observation for me. And I think there's loads of education out there on self-build. You're providing loads of education. There is others on YouTube and what have you. But the point is it's really important that if you're embarking on a self-build journey, that you get in touch with someone like you and you do this course, because the number of times we've had conversations with clients and said you need to make sure you've got a warranty, and it just seems to goes right over them, and it comes to, as you say, they need to go for a mortgage. We've maybe not been involved on the site sign-off, and you get a phone call, what's this, I need a warranty? And we can't remember if we've told them or not told them or not, but we know we probably told them, and you go, there's so much information on the internet just now. They can speak to people like you, they can ask architects things. These are the things that they should be doing. And I think that's why your course would be great, because they can go back and look at that section and get the reminders of wherever they are in the journey, and just make sure they're ticking the boxes at the right time.
No, 100% right. I mean, I had a small developer fairly recently got themselves in that exact situation, and the houses were up 95% plus complete. He had accepted an offer for one of the houses, and the purchaser solicitor said, okay, what warranty are we using? And the guy went, warranty? And of course, panic stations then, because they're not going to manage to sell the house unless they have a warranty, because the purchaser can't get a mortgage. So and that's what I referred to earlier. Yeah, we could get a warranty, but by God, it was something like 4 times the price it would have been had they actually engaged with it, actually done it properly right at the start of the build.
Yeah, everything's resolvable if you're prepared to throw enough money at it.
Well, that's it. Exactly.
Well, that kind of leads on to my next question, some of which you've kind of answered. So I was really looking for you to elaborate a wee bit on, what you offer your clients. And you've kind of covered a lot of that. But one of the things that you never mentioned, and I don't know if you do this or don't do this, is finance advice. So if someone's looking to, Mike, I've got a £250,000 build, I've bought the land, I've got £50,000 left, so I need 200 grand to finish it. Is that something you get involved in? Or is that
I can, yes. I mean, I can certainly. I mean, I've got contacts. Having been in the industry a long time, I've built up a high level of contacts, and finance, being one of them, because self-build finance is somewhat different to your normal residential finance. So there are companies, and I always suggest companies that actually specialize, within that area, because it is a different beast altogether in terms of, the payments, when they get the payments. Now, you can't get it in two ways. You can get it in advance, what they call an accelerator type mortgage, whereby you're actually paid monies in advance of the work actually being carried out, which gives you cash flow in order to pay, the builder or tradesman at the particular time, because most of them would be looking for, a payment at, either per week or per month, at the outset. So you can do it that way, accelerator mortgage, or you can get it in arrears, whereby you're getting, actually carry out the work, and then you make a claim for a payment, and then they will pay it at that point. But obviously you've got to cash flow that element of the work until such time as it's actually done.
Yeah.
So again, the self-build mortgage companies, the specialists within that area, will be able to advise all that. Will be able to advise you as to what is the most cost-effective way of raising finance. And it might be, it would allow you to stay in your existing house, but use the equity in your existing house to borrow against until such time as the house is substantially up, and then they can actually sell the house. So, and they would be looking at things, what income they've got, what assets they have, what savings they have, and then be able to advise them accordingly. So yeah, I've got lots of contacts for that.
A lot of good tips in there, Mike, as well. But also you mentioned, you're leading to the kind of the management of the finances through the build.
Yeah,
that's a fundamental thing. I think a lot of people forget about that, because if I'm right in saying, a lot of people still think that your build is VAT exempt, but if you're doing a self build, you've actually got to finance the VAT and then claim it back at the end from the VAT man.
Yeah. If you're in a situation where you're purchasing materials yourself and then just engaging labour, so you're buying materials and you will have to pay VAT for that materials, then you can't claim the VAT back at the end of the day, because so that net it is, you're not having to pay VAT. But the reality is you have to cash flow it.
Yeah.
The cash flow of the whole project is absolutely key. So it's all very well saying, oh yeah, I've got a mortgage for 200,000. That's great. But when can you get access to that 200,000? And is that going to accord with when you need to be paying your builders? If it's not, then you've got a major problem. So that's all part of the kind of learning process, is making people aware of that, because a lot of people say, oh no, it's fine, I've got a mortgage 200,000, but if you can't get access to it, then it's not much kind of use to you at the relevant points of the build.
Got out that once with a builder myself, actually. With a client who had the mortgage and everything in place. I was a young architect, never thought much of it, and I was involved on site, and it came time to paying the builder, and the bank wouldn't release the money because they wanted it to be wind and watertight before the first tranche. So I think it was something like, I'm going back a few years, I think it was maybe a £250,000 build, and the builder and their suppliers ended up having to finance something like £125,000–150,000 worth of materials and labour just to get to the wind and watertight stage so they could get the first drawdown. So it's definitely something that, as you say, that's got to be managed and looked into.
Cash flow is king in that situation, 100%. Yeah.
Everyone has their ideal client, and everyone has their kind of Rolls Royce service. So tell us a wee bit about your ideal client, and what would your Rolls Royce service for that client be?
Okay, I think my ideal client would be someone who has the aspiration of self-building, but really doesn't have an idea as to how to go about it, or maybe doesn't have the time in order to, they're maybe in a very high pressure job, and want to self-build, but just don't have the time to actually organize the whole thing. So I think that's where I can come in and actually do that on their behalf. So I can help guide them through, maybe even be able to help them find a site, to build on, appraise the site, suggest what they should offer for the site, because generally we'd find that most self-build sites that are on the market are probably overpriced, and you've really got to be looking at what the end value of the house you propose to build on is, and then work everything back in terms of the figures from there. Because you don't want to be buying a site in an excessive amount, and then by the time you build it, It's, you know, the combination of the two prices and all the professional fees and all the other costs, you know, makes it such that, you know, you're never ever going to get your money back. Because I always say you should try and be building in equity day one, you know, ideally. Now, that's not always possible, but you know, you should certainly be looking to, at least at the end of the day, if for whatever reason, if a, you know, life situation was to change, you know, God forbid, but, you know, illness or accident, and they had to sell the house for whatever reason, then at least you want to be in a situation where whatever you've spent in purchasing the site and building the house, that you can get your, you know, you can get your money back. And, you know, a lot of people, you know, don't consider that, but it's always something that I highlight, you know, can highlight to people. So that would be that. And then actually just to engage me, you know, to carry out this Rolls-Royce service would be to engage me to kind of carry out or help them carry out, you know, the complete build. So, you know, they've got very much a hands-off situation, and I've got the hands-on situation. So organising a contractor, subcontractor, you know, managing the whole process, you know, organising the payments, quotes, you know, quotes from builders and the subsequent payments once the work's been carried out, right through to completion, and then advising them on the, you know, the VAT reclaim at the end of the day in order that they can get all their VAT back.
Excellent, good. So almost a turnkey service there then.
Yeah, that you know, that's it. So, you know, it can be that. That's, you know, that would be somebody that's taken a very, very much a back step, and just wanting someone else just to go and, you know, deal with it on their behalf. And then there's various stages in there. As I say, I can tailor my service to suit what it is the client actually is looking for. So, you know, very flexible.
Fantastic. Things are changing just now in the construction world. There have been for several years, but we're getting closer and closer to, you know, this kind of passive standard whereby, you know, we're all going to be living in hermetically sealed boxes that are, you know, self-breathing and all this kind of stuff. I'm not knocking it. I think it's a good thing. I think it's the way we need to go. It's maybe a bit ill-conceived in some respects in terms of timescales and getting the industry up to, you know, the right standards. A bit like electric cars. You know, my pet heave just now. My pet heave is that planning departments are putting conditions on planning approvals saying you must provide charging points.
Yes.
And my pet heave about that is, you know, we don't actually know yet that that's going to be the most favoured, you know, way to deal with the car industry. I know we've got these standards, but you can already see people buying electric cars and trying to sell them the next week because they got 100 miles, go to a charging point, and actually there's a queue of 10 cars to get to the one. You know, it's just not quite there yet in the UK in terms of the whole thought process and the infrastructure. But taking that back to houses and self-builds, you must have some kind of views on, for example, where you would advise clients about renewables and, you know, for example, SIP panels versus timber kits, the type of construction methods and renewables that we're using in houses. What's your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, it is. You know, it's something that we are all going to be, you know, faced with. I mean, we're looking for, you know, zero carbon homes here in the UK by, you know, kind of 2050. Now, whether that's achievable or not remains to be seen. But certainly, you know, in the course, in fact, I've got you know, one of the modules is I call it Fabric First, and it's all about, you know, making the house as thermally efficient. You know, the fabric of the house, and that's the floor, the walls, the roof, windows, and doors, as thermally efficient as you possibly can, and then make it as airtight as you possibly can. Because there's no point in having a very thermal efficient house, the fabric of the house, if you haven't controlled the ventilation. And you're right, you know, almost becomes like a sealed, you know, kind of sealed box, because you don't want to have kind of uncontrolled ventilation, or what you and I would commonly refer to as drafts. You know, is what I said, oh, it's a drafty house. Great for ventilation, but an absolute disaster in terms of keeping it warm. So the combination of the two is absolutely critical. But then the next thing is the ventilation of it, because there's no point in having a very thermal efficient house and very airtight house if you're not disposing of the moisture-laden air that we generate just through breathing, cooking, bathing, and all the rest of it. And if you don't deal with that adequately, then you're going to get an environment is not a particularly healthy, environment. And we've probably all heard of the, the sick office kind of syndrome. Same, it's absolutely the same in housing, and you would find that you would actually start getting mold growth, and maybe these are not particularly well ventilated. Typically, in back of wardrobes, and there's dampness because my clothes are going all, are going all moldy. So you have to ventilate it properly. And a lot of people, in fact, the government are kind of pushing that you should, install air source heat pump. But what I say is, look, forget about what kind of heating system you're actually going to put in for a start. Get the fabric of the building as thermal efficient as you possibly can. That will then allow you to establish what the heat load is, and then you then look at what heat resource is best in order to address that heat load. Now, I've actually been involved in building houses that, and this is in Scotland, in the borders of Scotland, which don't have a central heating system. Now, a lot of people would, raise their eyebrows and say, in Scotland, no central heating system. No, it's not possible. It is perfectly possible to actually do that. And I'm not suggesting that everybody would want to do that, or indeed, from a valuation point of view, if you're having valuers coming around and valuing a house, and we're looking for where's the central heating, we don't have central heating. I think most valuers would be in this position where they're saying, oh, well, that would affect the actual value, which it may well do, because most people would be uneducated in terms of that possibility. So invariably, it would probably end up in a house being devalued. But I think there's, in terms of renewables, and the whole passive house. Well, passive house is a kind of German standard that's becoming more and more popular, and that involves, it's a pretty complicated package, but it involves, the thermal side, the air tightness, the ventilation, even the orientation of the house can make a difference. If you're taking the same house that maybe complied with passive house standards and orientated it 90 degrees, it wouldn't comply in that situation. So I think we're moving in the right direction. My gut feel is that the government are maybe not fully au fait or aware of what the impact actually is and what the expense is in meeting passive house standards. And I would say to people, and again I say in my course, is that I think you should build to passive house principles, but maybe not actually go for passive house certification, because that tends to be expensive.
Fantastic, Mike. Thank you for that. You've answered a few of my questions there just in that last few minutes. So, Mike, I've had fun today. I've enjoyed it. If anyone's watching this, I'm sure they've picked up some great hints and tips. If they're interested in getting in touch with you, learning a wee bit more about the course, is that something? How would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, what we can do is, we can certainly, if anybody wants to get in touch, touch with me, I'm quite happy to have a free initial half hour chat just to see what it is they're proposing to do, if my services are of interest to them. So, very informal chat, and more than happy to do that.
Fantastic. Okay, so
I can provide you with my my contact details, Kenny. Well, you probably already have them. Yeah. So people. Do
you want to just quickly give us the link to your webpage then?
Yeah, webpage is www.self-buildsuccess.co.uk. So it's www.self-buildsuccess.co.uk.
Fantastic, Mike. We'll get those links down below once we've got the video uploaded. Put your contact details on. Yeah,
that'd be good. That'd be good.
Mike, it's been great as always.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, bye.